Hey folks, stick around. Coming up next is DC News number 137. It's going to be a world's finest edition of DC News. And on it, we're going to talk about Superman. We're going to talk a lot about Superman. We're going to talk about the Orson Scott Card controversy and how that's going to finally shake out. We're also going to talk about the new Superman book, Superman Unchained, from Jim Lee and Scott Snyder. We're also going to talk about Kevin Smith and Jeff Johns working on a Superman project. And we're going to wrap it up with Batman. And we're going to talk about who is going to take Robin's place in Batman and Robin. All that and more coming right up.
Alternate Reality now opens at 10:30 instead of 11 on Sundays. There's a half an hour sleep over this, and so you guys better show up.
It's time again for DC News, brought to you by Comic Book Man and Bo. Don't fight it. I promise it'll all be over soon.
David Allen said, "You can do anything, but not everything." Yeah? Watch us. DC Comic Book News, episode 137, The Beverly Killbillies.
It's Comic Book Man here. Welcome once again to my video outhouse. Bo.
Yes?
Why are we here?
Because it's the time we tape the show, and it's DC News time.
Oh!
And Time Warner said, get your asses in here and do the segment.
DC News Time, which is coming to you from this place, Alternate Reality. Located at the intersection of 111th and Kedzie in beautiful downtown Mount Greenwood. Alternate Reality, where all my comics, including, especially all my DC comics, are always 15% off every day for everyone. We're going to start off with...
Controversy!
Orson Scott Card was doing the Adventures of Superman digital comic. But there have been some changes with that. Bo, what are the changes?
The first issue of the Adventures of Superman book, which is in the same vein as the Legends of the Dark Knight book,
yes,
which is digital stuff finally seen in print. Right. The first issue is going to have a story by Orson Scott Card, who wrote Ender's Game, and Chris Sprouse is going to draw it.
Now, there was a little bit of controversy about this because...
Orson Scott Card has been quite vocal about the fact that he does not have any use for gay people.
He's not the most tolerant person.
Right. He's not tolerant about it all. And a bunch of organizations said, why are you doing a Superman story with a guy who hates gay people? And for a while, the story got a little quiet. And then Chris Sprouse started getting people saying really mean things to him and said, you know, I signed on to draw a story, not to get myself in the middle of all this crap, I'm walking away. So the Orson Scott Card story, which was to be seen in Adventures of Superman #1, has been pulled, and we will see the story again sometime at a later date, or we may never see the story at all.
When gays like him better?
Yeah, well, he's a serious Mormon, isn't he?
I don't know if he's a Mormon or not. The thing you have to pay attention to is the fact that they're doing a big screen adaptation of Ender's Game.
Well,
and
it's
coming out, so are the protests going to affect that as well? Because Scott's beliefs have not been secret, and Marvel's had no problem using him for stories.
Yeah.
It's not as if he's hiding this. He's quite vocal about this.
Marvel's adapted a whole bunch of Orson Scott Card stuff over the years. The thing that gets me about this is I'm assuming it's because it's Superman, as opposed to Marvel doing an
adaptation. Well, it was Iron Man. Yeah, they're doing an Iron Man. He's doing an Iron Man book, and
he's doing an Iron Man book?
Well, he did an Iron Man limited series, and no one said anything about it then, and he was saying it back then. If they did it now with Iron Man 3 coming out, it probably would be a bigger deal.
As much as some Marvel fans...
Yes, I'm a Marvel fan.
Much as some Marvel fans might not like to hear this, Superman does carry a different cachet than, say, Iron Man or some of the other Marvel characters.
Spider-Man?
Because of the fact he's been around for 75 years. And people look at Superman and Wonder Woman and Batman in a little bit different light than they look at the Marvel characters. Not that that's good or bad, and believe me, it's probably more baggage than the characters need, because it's one of the things that creatively holds them back, as far as I'm concerned. But it's still there. And when people hear that Orson Scott Card is doing a Superman book, it hits people a little differently, especially people not inside the comic book industry, but outside of the comic book industry, who, you know, the folks who say, I haven't read a Superman comic in 30 years, and boy, were they great, but I wouldn't get off my butt to buy one now. Those folks, when they hear that, they get a little more upset about it than, say, Iron Man.
Well, it's news to me, because this is the first time hearing that he's homophobic. And I know Orson Scott Card from reading quite a bit of what he's done. So what I'm saying is I don't think that's knowledge that was mainstream. It's now becoming mainstream because it's becoming a fight.
When he's done interviews, he's not exactly hit it. He's,
he's
like the head of an
He doesn't draw a crowd when he goes.
He doesn't draw a crowd because he's a science fiction writer, and science fiction writers fall in this very specific niche.
Exactly.
You know, and so people
It's
don't
not
notice it as much. I mean, it's like, oh, he's a science fiction guy. But it's sort of weird to me. People are complaining about this, and yet, you know, Superman's an alien, and you know, and he's here, and we accept him as one of us. And you complain about a guy who says he doesn't like gay people. His beliefs have nothing to do with the story he wrote.
but like-
you have to separate one thing from the other.
But like
this is
Comic
much
Book
to
Man
do
said,
about
when
nothing.
you hang Superman around his neck, then it becomes an issue.
Yeah, I mean,
But
if you
prior to that, you wouldn't know Orson Scott Card wrote
if,
Ender's Game. Nobody
if
would know that.
Orson Scott Card was doing a Booster Gold story,
Right.
I don't think
Yeah,
anyone.
nobody
It
cared.
wouldn't
Right,
even
right.
be a
Nobody
fart in
would.
the wind.
Right.
But you see, hang him on Superman,
Yeah.
and now it's a front page
I
story.
mean, isn't he doing? Isn't some other company doing some Orson cards? Isn't Dynamite or somebody else doing some Orson card stuff too?
They
I
did a
don't
Red
think
Prophet.
so.
They did a Red Prophet.
Yeah,
Well, that was
Prophet.
Dabble. Well, that was Dabble.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
Dabble.
well,
way
whoever
back.
that was,
Yeah.
they covered his Red Prophet.
Anyway, you know, I
Yeah,
understand. You know, the people are being upset about the homophobia. At the same time, I think that the story ought to rise and fall on the merits of the story and what he winds up doing in it. I don't think that Card would put anything crazy in a Superman story because I don't think DC would let him put anything
I
crazy
think- yeah, I mean-
into a Superman story. But at the same time, I understand people being upset that he's
Yeah,
actually
'cause-
doing it in the first place.
Yeah, because it's only like an 8-page story. It's not as if this is a full issue. This is like
Yeah.
an 8-page story. You know, so.
Anyway, moving on. Speaking of Superman, the Jim Lee Scott Snyder book has finally gotten a name, and it is
Superman Unchained.
Unchained.
It's not called Man of Steel.
Not Man of Steel.
Even though the first issue ships the same week as Man of Steel opens.
You'd think they'd make a Man of Steel book with a Man of Steel movie coming out.
Maybe there was some kind of issue that they said we don't want to use that. But the first issue has got, you know, it's a Jim Lee cover with Superman, as he has done from time to time, busting out of chains. And each issue will have a backup feature that will be written by Scott Snyder, which will be drawn by Dustin Nguyen, who drew the little Gotham stories for some other stuff. But Superman Unchained coming in June. June!
And continuing with Superman in our world's finest edition of DC News, Jeff Johns and Kevin Smith are doing something together with Superman. What are they doing?
Well, they're working on a DC project, and Smith on his podcast more or less said it involves a super thing, a super event, so it's some kind of Superman, probably a Superman one-shot, which might tie into the Superman movie, or it might be seen later on. It could be a Superman graphic novel. Maybe Smith and Johns are going to get together and do another Superman original graphic novel. You know?
Or maybe they're going to take Kevin Smith's unused screenplay from back in the early 90s,
Oh, no.
and maybe Jeff Johns will punch it up and put a
No.
little action into it so nobody falls
That
asleep.
thing is beyond-
And maybe that is what they were doing.
That thing is beyond punchable.
Oh, I think Jeff Johns could take it and fix it up a little
Jeff
bit.
Johns cannot walk on water.
Well, I read it. It's not that bad.
It's not that
the problem.
bad.
The problem with that is it doesn't have a lot of action in it, and it does have some stupid stuff in it. As Kevin Smith has talked about a lot, there's the polar bear stuff.
Yeah.
you know, which,
And a lot of that had to do with the
which I'm not going to get into. But if you've ever seen any Kevin Smith stuff, he goes into great length about that.
Pick up a couple Kevin Smith books, and you get the whole story about his lovely experience working on Superman Lives and producer John Peters, and you'll go, oh, okay.
Yeah, well, he does a whole lecture series thing, which is just about Superman Lives. He talks about it for 20-25 minutes. It's actually quite entertaining. If you ever get a chance to see it, it's on YouTube.
Yeah, it's
You know,
on
you should
video.
get a
Yeah,
chance
it's
to
on
look at it.
DVD and video.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up. I said world's finest. That, of course, means Batman. Here's your Batman story. I don't know if any of you heard.
What?
Damian's dead. Oh, my God, a spoiler. I gave it away.
What?
Damian's
Who?
dead, and Batman...
Damian's dead?
Batman and Robin...
Oh, my God, no! Ah!
The Batman and Robin comic now doesn't have a Robin for a Batman and Robin comic. So, what are they going to do in future issues? What are they going to do, Bo?
Well, issue 18 is going to be a silent issue. No dialogue. 19 through
No artwork
23
either.
will have Batman teaming up with Red Robin,
Yes.
Red Hood, Batgirl, Catwoman, and Nightwing. So each issue will have Batman hanging out with a member of the Bat family, dealing with the fact that Damian Wayne, Bruce Wayne's son, is dead.
For those of you who can't wrap your head around that concept, just think of Captain America and Bucky and what that turned into over the course of its 30 or so issue run. Captain America and Bucky, Captain America and Black Widow, Captain America and Iron Man, Captain America and fill in the
Hawkeye,
blank,
yeah.
HR Puffin stuff.
Captain America and whoever the hell we want to push,
Right,
who's
whoever we
popular
push
right
in New
now.
York, right.
It's the same thing. Same thing.
Well,
And that's it. We're done. We're finished. We're out of here. We got no more DC news. Go to the store's website, though. Check out all the DC news Bo sends me that I post up there. Bo!
Damian's dead! I can't talk anymore!
Sarah, where do they go?
www.myalternatereality.com. Because everyone needs a little alteration in their reality.
So go to the store's website. Check out all his news. Until next time, this is Comic Book Man.
This is Bo!
Shut up.
And the Oscars.
Bye, South Holland!
The Video Outhouse is brought to you by some of the finest people willing to work for free. This is a list of some of them.